The champagne glass slipped from Angela's fingers, shattering against the marble floor of the grand ballroom. Her heart stopped beating as she watched her 4-year-old daughter, Sophia, break away from her grasp and run across the crowded reception hall. The little girl's bright red dress bounced with each determined step as she headed straight toward a lone figure sitting in a wheelchair near the floor-to-ceiling windows. Angela's breath caught in her throat. Even from behind, even after 5 years, even in that wheelchair, she knew that silhouette better than her own reflection. Jonathan Reed. The man who had vanished from her life without explanation. The man whose child she had raised alone. The billionaire CEO who had built an empire and then disappeared from the public eye entirely. Daddy? Sophia's sweet voice cut through the wedding reception's cheerful noise like a blade through silk. Time froze. Every conversation around them seemed to pause. Angela felt the blood drain from her face as she watched her daughter climb onto the armrest of Jonathan's wheelchair with the fearless confidence only a child could possess. His dark eyes, once so familiar, looked up in shock and confusion. How could Sophia know? Angela had never shown her daughter any photos. She had never spoken his name. Yet here was her little girl, acting as if she had known this man her entire life, wrapping her tiny arms around his neck with pure trust and love. Angela's legs felt like jelly as she forced herself to move forward. Each step felt like walking through quicksand. The other wedding guests were starting to stare, their whispered conversations creating a buzz of curiosity throughout the elegant ballroom. She could feel their eyes burning into her back, could practically hear their minds working to piece together this unexpected drama. Jonathan's hands trembled as he gently held Sophia, his eyes never leaving Angela's face as she approached. The years had changed him. His once perfectly styled hair was longer, slightly unkempt. His designer suit, while still expensive, hung loosely on a frame that had clearly lost weight. But those eyes, those deep brown eyes that had once looked at her with such passion and promise, remained exactly the same. What are the chances that your past would collide with your present in such a dramatic way? Have you ever had a moment that changed everything in an instant? Share your thoughts below and subscribe to see how this incredible story unfolds. Your support means everything to our storytelling community. Hello, Angela. Jonathan's voice was softer than she remembered, carrying a weight that spoke of pain and loss she could only imagine. Jonathan. Her voice came out as barely a whisper. I didn't know you would be here. Sophia looked back and forth between them with bright, intelligent eyes. Mommy, why are you crying? This is Daddy, right? The one from my dreams. Angela's heart shattered and soared at the same time. Dreams. Her daughter had been dreaming about a father she had never met, yet somehow recognized instantly. The child's innocent words hung in the air between them like a bridge neither adult knew how to cross. I need to explain, Angela managed, reaching for her daughter. But Sophia clung tighter to Jonathan as if afraid he might disappear again. Please, Jonathan said, his voice rough with emotion. Don't take her away. Not yet. The wedding reception continued around them, but their little triangle of shock and recognition existed in its own bubble of suspended time. Angela looked at the man she had once loved with every fiber of her being, now confined to a wheelchair, holding the daughter he never knew existed. The daughter who had somehow found him despite every odd against it. We need to talk, Angela said finally. Jonathan nodded, his arms still wrapped protectively around Sophia. Yes, we do. As if sensing the gravity of the moment, Sophia looked up at both of them with the wisdom that children sometimes possess. Are we going to be a family now? The question hung in the air like a prayer, a hope, a possibility that neither adult had dared to imagine just moments before. The memory hit Angela like a physical blow as she sat across from Jonathan in the quiet corner of the hotel's garden terrace. Sophia had fallen asleep in Jonathan's arms, her small head resting against his chest as if it was the most natural thing in the world. The afternoon sun cast gentle shadows across the three of them, creating an almost surreal family portrait that Angela had never dared to imagine. 5 years ago, she had been a different person entirely. Fresh out of college with a degree in business administration, she had landed a job as an assistant at Reed Industries. Jonathan had been 32 then, young for a billionaire CEO, brilliant and driven in ways that made everyone around him want to be better. She had been 23, ambitious, and completely unprepared for the way he looked at her during their first meeting. You have ideas, he had said after she presented a marketing proposal that went against everything his senior staff had suggested. I like people with ideas. What started as professional respect had grown into late nights working together on projects, shared dinners that gradually became less about business and more about getting to know each other. Jonathan had been different then, lighter somehow. He laughed easily and dreamed out loud about building something that would change the world. Their romance had been like something out of a movie. Private jets to Paris for weekend trips, quiet dinners in his penthouse overlooking the city, moments of pure happiness that made Angela believe in fairy tales. For 8 months she had been living in a dream where the prince was real and he loved her back. Then came the morning when she woke up to find him packing. "I have to go away," he had said without looking at her. "Business. I don't know when I'll be back." "Then I'll wait," she had replied, still believing in their love story. "Don't." The single word had cut through her heart like a knife. This was never going to work long term. We both knew that. She had stood there in her pajamas, watching the man she loved pack away not just his clothes but their entire relationship as if it meant nothing. No explanation. No real goodbye. Just a check for more money than she made in 2 years and instructions to find another job. "Why?" she had whispered. But he was already gone. 2 weeks later she discovered she was pregnant. She had called his office, his personal number, even tried to reach him through his family's lawyers. The message was always the same. Mr. Reed was unavailable and would not be accepting any communications. Pride had kept her from trying harder. If he could walk away from what they had shared so easily, then she would prove she could build a life without him. She found a new job, moved to a smaller apartment, and prepared to become a single mother. Now, watching him hold their daughter with such gentle care, Angela felt the old anger and hurt rising up alongside something else she hadn't expected: hope. "Why did you leave?" she asked quietly, not wanting to wake Sophia. Jonathan's eyes met hers over their daughter's head. "My father was dying. Cancer. He had 6 months, maybe less. He made me promise to take care of some family issues. Business dealings that weren't entirely legal. I couldn't drag you into that world." Angela felt the air leave her lungs. "You left to protect me?" "I left because I was a coward," he corrected. "I should have told you the truth. Should have fought for us. Instead, I convinced myself you were better off without me. I tried to reach you. When I found out about the baby," pain flashed across his features. "I was already in Switzerland by then. My father lasted 8 months, not 6. By the time I came back you had disappeared. I hired private investigators, but you had covered your tracks well. I changed my name back to my maiden name. Moved across the country. Started over completely." They sat in silence for several minutes, both processing the weight of their mutual misunderstanding. Sophia stirred slightly in Jonathan's arms, smiling in her sleep as if she was having the most wonderful dream. "She looks like you," Jonathan said softly. "She has your stubborn streak," Angela replied, surprised to find herself almost smiling. "And your eyes. What's she like? Tell me everything." For the next hour, Angela found herself sharing stories about their daughter. Sophia's first steps, her first words, which had been more because she was never satisfied with just one of anything, her love of books and her habit of naming all her stuffed animals after characters from fairy tales. "She asks about her father sometimes," Angela admitted. "I tell her that he's a good man who lives far away and thinks about her every day." Jonathan's eyes filled with tears he didn't try to hide. "You could have told her I was dead. Would have been easier. I never wanted her to think she wasn't wanted. Even if I was angry at you, I never wanted her to carry that burden." "Thank you," he whispered. "For that. For everything. For raising her to be so perfect." Angela looked at this man who had once broken her heart, now holding their daughter as if she was the most precious thing in the world. The anger she had carried for 5 years was still there, but it was mixed with something else now. Understanding, maybe. Or perhaps just the recognition that they had both made mistakes, both paid prices they hadn't expected to pay. "What happened to you?" she asked, gesturing gently toward his wheelchair. "The accident." Jonathan's jaw tightened. 2 years ago. I was driving back from a business meeting. Fell asleep at the wheel. Crashed into a bridge support. The doctors said I was lucky to survive. But you can't walk. No, probably never will. Turns out losing everything puts life into perspective real fast. Angela reached across the small space between them and placed her hand over his. "I'm sorry. For all of it." He looked down at their joined hands, then back up at her face. "I know we can't go back. I know I lost the right to be part of your life a long time ago. But she called me Daddy, Angela. Your little girl looked at me and called me Daddy. I don't understand how she knew. I never told her anything about you." Jonathan smiled for the first time since she had seen him at the wedding. Maybe some connections don't need explanations. Maybe some hearts just recognize each other. Sophia stirred again, opening her eyes and looking up at Jonathan with complete trust. "Daddy, are you going to read me a story tonight?" Angela's heart clenched at the simple question, loaded with so much hope and innocent expectation. She looked at Jonathan, seeing her own uncertainty reflected in his eyes. "We'll figure it out," she heard herself saying. "Somehow we'll figure it out." Jonathan stared at the ceiling of his sparse apartment, the same ritual he had performed every morning for the past 2 years since the accident. The penthouse was gone, sold along with most of his assets to cover the debts that had accumulated while he spent 8 months in hospitals and rehabilitation centers. This modest 2-bedroom place in Queens was a far cry from his former life, but it was what he could afford now. The morning light filtered through thin curtains, highlighting the medical equipment that had become permanent fixtures in his life. The wheelchair sat beside his bed like a metal reminder of everything he had lost. His legs, his company, his fortune, his future as he had always imagined it. But yesterday had changed everything. Yesterday, a little girl with his eyes had called him daddy and turned his world upside down in the most beautiful way possible. He transferred himself to his wheelchair with the practiced efficiency that had taken months to master. Physical therapy had taught him to be independent, but it hadn't taught him how to fill the empty hours that stretched ahead of him each day. Until now, those hours had been filled with the kind of darkness that came from believing his life was essentially over. The accident had happened on a rainy Thursday evening in November. He had been driving back from a meeting with potential investors, his mind full of expansion plans and profit projections. The last thing he remembered was feeling his eyelids grow heavy, then the deafening sound of metal crushing metal. When he woke up 3 weeks later in intensive care, his world had completely changed. Spinal cord injury, the doctors explained. Complete. Permanent. The words had hit him harder than the actual crash. His business partners had tried to be supportive at first, but Reed Industries was Jonathan's vision, his drive, his personal brand. Without him at the helm, making the quick decisions that kept them ahead of their competition, the company began to struggle. 6 months after the accident, they had voted him out of his own company. "It's not personal," his former business partner, Richard, had said during that final board meeting. "But we need someone who can be here physically. Someone who can travel, can meet with clients face to face. You understand." Jonathan had understood perfectly. He had built a company culture that valued strength, quick thinking, and the ability to pivot at a moment's notice. In his wheelchair, he represented everything they wanted to move away from. The irony wasn't lost on him. His family had been no better. His mother, always more concerned with social appearances than emotional support, had made it clear that she found his condition embarrassing. His sister visited twice in 2 years, both times to ask for money he no longer had. "You've changed," she had said during her last visit. "You're not the same person anymore." She was right. The accident hadn't just taken his legs. It had stripped away every illusion he'd had about the people in his life and what really mattered to them. So he had withdrawn. Stopped taking calls, stopped seeing anyone who might look at him with pity or disappointment. He lived off his remaining savings and the small consulting fees he earned from the privacy of his apartment, helping other companies with strategic planning while staying invisible himself. Richard's wedding invitation had surprised him. After everything that had happened with the company, he hadn't expected to be included in his former partner's celebration. Maybe it was guilt, or maybe it was a genuine attempt to rebuild their friendship. Either way, Jonathan had almost thrown the invitation away. Something had made him change his mind at the last minute. Perhaps it was the loneliness that had become his constant companion, or maybe just the desire to prove to himself that he could still function in the world outside his apartment. He had rented a tuxedo, called a cab, and told himself he would stay for 1 hour. He never could have imagined that 1 hour would give him a daughter. The memory of Sophia's small arms around his neck still made his chest tight with emotion he hadn't felt in years. The way she had looked at him without fear, without pity, without any of the careful distance most people maintained around his wheelchair. She had simply seen him and known, with the certainty that only children possess, that he belonged to her. And Angela. Beautiful, strong Angela who had raised their daughter alone while he wallowed in his own self-pity. She had every right to hate him, to keep Sophia away from him, to build a life that didn't include the man who had abandoned them both. Instead, she had shown him grace he didn't deserve. His phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text message from Angela. "Sophia wants to know if you like pancakes. She's planning the menu for breakfast tomorrow." Jonathan stared at the message for a long moment, hardly daring to believe it was real. They wanted to see him again. His daughter was making him breakfast plans. He typed back quickly, "I love pancakes. Especially with blueberries." The response came immediately, "Perfect. She says blueberries are fancy fruit for fancy daddies. See you at 9? "I'll be there," he typed, then added, "Thank you, Angela. For everything. Don't thank me yet. You haven't tasted her cooking." Despite everything, Jonathan found himself laughing out loud. When was the last time he had laughed? When was the last time he had looked forward to tomorrow instead of just enduring today? He moved to his small kitchen and opened the refrigerator, mentally cataloging what he could bring to breakfast. It wasn't much, but he could pick up orange juice and maybe some flowers on the way. Sophia struck him as the kind of little girl who would appreciate flowers. As he planned their morning together, Jonathan realized something had fundamentally shifted inside him. The accident had taken away his old life, but maybe it had also cleared the path for something better. Something real. For the first time in 2 years, he had a reason to get up in the morning that had nothing to do with mere survival and everything to do with hope. Sophia's bedroom was a kingdom of pastel colors and stuffed animals, each one carefully arranged according to some 4-year-old logic that Angela had long ago stopped trying to understand. As she tucked her daughter into bed that night, she could see the excitement practically radiating from the little girl's every pore. "Mommy, is Daddy really coming for breakfast tomorrow?" Sophia asked for the 5th time in the past hour. "Yes, sweetheart. He'll be here at 9. And he's going to stay this time?" The question hit Angela like a punch to the chest. She sat down on the edge of Sophia's bed, smoothing her daughter's curly hair back from her forehead. "What do you mean, honey? In my dreams, Daddy always has to leave. But this time he can stay, right?" Angela felt tears prick her eyes. She had tried so hard to protect Sophia from the pain of not having a father, but children were more perceptive than adults often gave them credit for. Somehow, her daughter had been carrying the weight of an absent parent in ways Angela hadn't even realized. "We'll take it one day at a time," Angela said carefully. "But yes, I think he wants to stay in your life now." Sophia nodded solemnly, as if this was exactly the answer she had expected. "Good. Because I have lots of questions for him." "What kind of questions?" "Like why his legs don't work and if he can still drive a car and if he knows how to braid hair." Sophia paused, considering. "Also, I want to know if he likes ice cream for breakfast because that would be the best daddy thing ever." Angela couldn't help but smile. "Those are very good questions. I'm sure he'll be happy to answer them." "Mommy?" Sophia's voice grew softer. "Why didn't Daddy know about me before?" This was the question Angela had been dreading. How do you explain adult mistakes and miscommunication to a 4-year-old? How do you tell your child that sometimes people make choices based on fear instead of love? "Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes," Angela said finally. "Your daddy made a mistake by going away and I made a mistake by not trying harder to find him. But the important thing is that he knows about you now and he's very, very happy." "Did he cry when he met me?" "He looked like he wanted to cry." "Happy tears," Angela confirmed. "Sometimes people cry when they're very happy." Sophia seemed satisfied with this explanation. She rolled onto her side, hugging her favorite stuffed elephant. "Mommy, do you think Daddy will like our apartment?" "It's not very big. I think he'll love it because you live here." "Good." Sophia yawned. "I cleaned my room for him. Well, mostly cleaned. I put all the important stuff where he can see it." Angela looked around the room, noticing for the first time that Sophia had indeed rearranged her belongings. Her favorite books were prominently displayed on the low shelf, along with the artwork she was most proud of. Her stuffed animals were arranged as if they were an audience waiting to meet someone special. "You did a beautiful job," Angela said, kissing her daughter's forehead. "Now get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be a big day." "The biggest day ever," Sophia agreed, already drifting off. Angela turned off the light and made her way to the living room, where her own preparations for tomorrow were spread across the coffee table. She had printed out some of Sophia's baby photos, thinking Jonathan might want to see them. There were also some drawings Sophia had made over the years that mentioned her daddy, pictures Angela had saved without really knowing why. One drawing in particular caught her attention. It was from last year when Sophia's preschool teacher had asked the children to draw their families. Most kids had drawn stick figures holding hands, but Sophia had drawn something different. She had drawn herself and Angela, but off to the side was another figure in what looked like a chair with wheels. "Who is this?" Angela remembered asking at the time. "That's my daddy," Sophia had said matter-of-factly. "He can't walk but he loves me anyway." Angela had been so shocked by the drawing that she had tucked it away in a box and tried not to think about it. Now, looking at it again, she realized that somehow, in some way she couldn't explain, Sophia had always known about her father. Not the details, not his name or his story, but something deeper. Some connection that went beyond logic or explanation. Her phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. It was her sister Nicole calling for their weekly check-in. How was the wedding? Nicole asked. Did you have fun playing coordinator for the rich and famous? Angela took a deep breath. Actually, something happened. Something big. She told Nicole the whole story, from the moment Sophia ran across the ballroom to their conversation on the hotel terrace. Her sister listened in increasingly stunned silence. Wait, Nicole said when Angela finished. You're telling me that the father of your child, the billionaire who disappeared 5 years ago, showed up at a wedding in a wheelchair, and Sophia somehow recognized him instantly? I know how it sounds. It sounds like a movie. A really dramatic, unbelievable movie. Nicole paused. How are you feeling about all this? Angela considered the question. Terrified, hopeful, confused, all at the same time. And he wants to be part of her life? He wants to try. We're taking it slow, seeing how things go. Angela, Nicole's voice grew serious. I know you loved this man once, but he hurt you badly. Don't let your feelings for him cloud your judgment when it comes to protecting Sophia. I know. But Nicole, you should have seen them together. It was like she had been waiting her whole life to meet him. And the way he looked at her, the way he held her. I don't think he's the same man who walked away from me 5 years ago. People don't change that much. Maybe not. But maybe getting everything taken away from you and then getting something precious back. Maybe that changes a person in ways we can't imagine. After they hung up, Angela sat in her quiet living room, looking at the photos and drawings spread across her coffee table. Tomorrow would bring new questions, new challenges, new possibilities. For the first time in 5 years, she wasn't facing the future alone. The thought was both thrilling and terrifying. Angela woke up at 6 in the morning to the sound of pots and pans clattering in the kitchen. She found Sophia standing on a chair at the stove, wearing her favorite apron that was decorated with cartoon cats, attempting to flip what appeared to be the flattest pancake in recorded history. Sweetie, what are you doing? Angela asked, rushing to turn off the burner. Making breakfast for Daddy, Sophia announced proudly. I wanted to surprise him, but the pancakes are being stubborn. Angela looked at the kitchen, which appeared to have been hit by a flour tornado. There was batter on the cabinets, eggshells on the counter, and what looked like an entire container of blueberries scattered across the floor. How about we make breakfast together? Angela suggested, trying not to laugh. For the next 2 hours, they worked side by side, cleaning up Sophia's well-intentioned mess and creating a proper breakfast. Sophia chattered constantly about all the things she wanted to show Jonathan, from her collection of picture books to the bird's nest she could see from her bedroom window. At exactly 9 o'clock, there was a knock at the door. Angela's heart jumped into her throat. All morning, she had been focusing on Sophia's excitement, but now that the moment was here, her own nerves hit her like a wave. She was about to invite the man who had shattered her heart into their home, into the safe space she had created for herself and her daughter. He's here, Sophia squealed, running toward the door. Wait, Angela called, catching her daughter's hand. Let Mommy get the door first. She opened it to find Jonathan sitting in his wheelchair, looking as nervous as she felt. He was dressed in a navy blue button-down shirt and khakis, and he held a small bouquet of yellow flowers in one hand and a stuffed rabbit in the other. Good morning, he said, his voice slightly hoarse. I brought these for you, he handed her the flowers, and this for Sophia. He held up the rabbit, which had soft gray fur and a bright pink bow. Daddy? Sophia pushed past Angela and climbed onto Jonathan's lap without hesitation. You came. And you brought Mr. Hopscotch a friend. Mr. Hopscotch? Jonathan asked. My rabbit at home. Now he won't be lonely anymore. Sophia hugged the new stuffed animal tightly. What should we name her? What about Rosie? Jonathan suggested. Because of her pink bow? Rosie is perfect, Sophia declared. Come see my room. I made it special for you. Before Angela could intervene, Sophia had hopped down and was pulling Jonathan's wheelchair toward her bedroom. Angela followed, watching as her daughter gave Jonathan the complete tour, explaining the significance of each stuffed animal and the story behind every drawing on the walls. This is my favorite book, Sophia said, pulling a worn copy of Goodnight Moon from her shelf. Mommy reads it to me every night. Do you know how to read stories? I do, Jonathan said. I used to read a lot of stories when I was your age. Will you read to me sometime? I would love that more than anything. Angela felt her chest tighten with emotion. The easy way they interacted, the natural affection between them, was both beautiful and heartbreaking. It was everything she had dreamed of when she first found out she was pregnant, and everything she had convinced herself they could live without. Breakfast is ready, she announced, not trusting herself to watch much more of their bonding without breaking down. In the kitchen, Angela served pancakes while Sophia kept up a steady stream of chatter. She told Jonathan about her best friend at preschool, about the cat who visited their fire escape, about her plans to become a veterinarian who specialized in helping sick elephants. Are elephants often sick? Jonathan asked seriously, as if this was a completely reasonable career goal. Oh yes, Sophia nodded. They get very sad when they're away from their families. I'm going to help them feel better. Jonathan's eyes met Angela's across the table, and she saw her own thoughts reflected there. Their daughter's wisdom about families and belonging was both innocent and profound. Daddy, Sophia said suddenly, why don't your legs work? Angela tensed, but Jonathan took the question in stride. I was in a car accident. Sometimes when people get hurt very badly, parts of their body stop working the way they used to. Does it hurt? Not anymore. But I miss being able to run and walk. Sophia considered this seriously. But you can still hug, right? And read stories? And eat pancakes. Yes to all of those things. Then the important parts still work, Sophia concluded with 4-year-old logic that was absolutely perfect. After breakfast, while Sophia played with her new rabbit, Angela and Jonathan found themselves alone in the living room for the first time. The weight of 5 years of separation settled between them like a physical presence. She's incredible, Jonathan said softly. You've done an amazing job raising her. Thank you. Angela sat down on the couch, leaving space between them but close enough to talk quietly. I have to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Anything. Are you here because you want to be her father, or because you feel guilty about the past? Jonathan was quiet for a long moment, and Angela appreciated that he was really thinking about his answer instead of giving her something easy and meaningless. Both, he said finally. I do feel guilty. I made choices that cost us 5 years together, and I'll regret that for the rest of my life. But guilt isn't what made me want to hold her yesterday, and it's not what made me lie awake all night thinking about her. She's my daughter Angela. I can feel it in every cell of my body. I want to be her father not because I owe it to the past, but because I can't imagine any other future now. What if she gets attached to you and you decide this is too hard? What if you realize that being a father isn't what you thought it would be? Then I'll figure it out, Jonathan said firmly. I'll get therapy, I'll read books, I'll ask for help. But I won't walk away again. I can't. Not from her. Angela studied his face, looking for any sign of uncertainty or reservation. She's not always this perfect, you know? She has tantrums. She doesn't like vegetables. She asks about 1,000,000 questions a day, and most of them don't have good answers. I hope she asks me 1,000,000 questions. I have 5 years of her life to catch up on. From the other room came the sound of Sophia singing a song to her new stuffed rabbit, her voice sweet and slightly off-key. Both adults smiled at the sound. So what happens now? Angela asked. I don't know, Jonathan admitted. I've never done this before. I don't have any experience with being a father, and I know my situation complicates things. But I want to learn. I want to be whatever kind of father she needs me to be. Angela felt some of the tension in her chest ease slightly. His honesty was something she could work with. His willingness to admit his limitations was more reassuring than false confidence would have been. We'll take it slow, she said. Visits like this. Maybe dinner sometimes. We'll see how it goes. And us? Jonathan asked quietly. Where do we fit in this equation? It was the question Angela had been avoiding all morning. I don't know. Right now, my only concern is what's best for Sophia. Everything else, we'll have to figure out as we go. Jonathan nodded, accepting her boundaries without argument. Whatever you need. However you want to handle this. Just then, Sophia appeared in the doorway holding both rabbits. Daddy, will you come back tomorrow? Rosie and Mr. Hopscotch want to have a tea party. Jonathan looked at Angela, who nodded slightly. I would be honored to attend a tea party, he said solemnly. Good. Sophia climbed onto his lap again, settling in as if she belonged there. Mommy makes the best pretend cookies. You're going to love them. Angela watched her daughter curl up against Jonathan's chest, saw the way his arms tightened around her protectively, and felt something shift inside her heart. Maybe they couldn't go back to what they had been before. Maybe they couldn't erase the pain of the past. But perhaps they could build something new, something better, something worth the risk of hoping again. 3 weeks had passed since that first breakfast, and Jonathan had become a regular fixture in their lives. He came for dinner twice a week, attended Sophia's preschool play where she performed as a singing flower, and had read Goodnight Moon so many times he could recite it from memory. Today was different though. Today was their first real outing as a family unit, and Angela was more nervous than she cared to admit. Central Park Zoo, Sophia announced from her car seat as Angela drove them toward Manhattan. The penguins are going to love Daddy. Why will the penguins love me specifically? Jonathan asked from the passenger seat, turning to smile at their daughter. Because you both wear fancy black and white clothes and you both slide around instead of walking normal. Angela nearly choked on her coffee. Sophia, honey, that's not. But Jonathan was laughing, the kind of deep, genuine laughter she hadn't heard from him in years. She's absolutely right. I do slide around and I do prefer formal wear. The penguins and I are going to be best friends. The ease with which he handled Sophia's innocent observations about his disability continued to amaze Angela. Where other adults might have felt awkward or sorry for him, Sophia simply accepted his wheelchair as part of who he was, no different from her friend Katie's glasses or her teacher's curly hair. The zoo was crowded with families enjoying the mild Saturday afternoon. Angela found herself hyper-aware of the stares they attracted: a black woman, a white man in a wheelchair, and their obviously mixed-race daughter. Most people looked away quickly, but some lingered, their curiosity evident. Ignore them, Jonathan said quietly, as if reading her thoughts. They're just trying to figure out our story. Does it bother you? The staring? It used to. Now I'm too happy to care what strangers think. Sophia ran ahead toward the penguin exhibit, her bright green dress making her easy to spot in the crowd. She pressed her face against the glass, watching the birds dive and swim with pure delight. Look, Daddy. That one is doing flips just like you do when you transfer from your chair to the car. Several nearby visitors turned to stare, but Jonathan just rolled closer to the exhibit. You're right. He's showing off his moves. I should take notes. Can you teach me how to do that? The flipping thing? Maybe when you're older, Angela intervened quickly, and after lots of safety lessons. They spent the next 2 hours exploring the zoo together. Jonathan proved to be an excellent tour guide, somehow knowing interesting facts about nearly every animal they encountered. Sophia hung on his every word, asking follow-up questions that would have stumped most adults. At the sea lion show, they found seats in the accessible section. Sophia insisted on sitting between her parents, holding both their hands during the performance. It was such a natural gesture, such a normal family moment, that Angela felt tears prick her eyes. You okay? Jonathan asked softly. Yeah, this is nice. Being here together. It is nice, he agreed. I keep waiting for someone to tell me I'm dreaming. During the break between shows, Sophia announced she needed to use the restroom. As Angela took her daughter's hand to lead her away, Sophia turned back to Jonathan with a serious expression. Daddy, don't go anywhere. Promise? I promise. I'll be right here when you get back. Good. Because sometimes daddies disappear and little girls get scared. The words hit both adults like a physical blow. Angela saw Jonathan's face go pale, saw him struggle with the weight of his daughter's innocent fear. I'm not going anywhere, he said firmly. Not ever again. Satisfied, Sophia skipped off toward the restrooms, leaving her parents to process the depth of insight their 4-year-old had just displayed. Can you imagine the courage it takes for a child to trust again after feeling abandoned? This story shows us that healing is possible when love leads the way. What do you think about second chances? Share your thoughts and subscribe to see how this beautiful family continues to grow together. In the restroom, Sophia chattered happily while washing her hands. Mommy, do you think Daddy likes being our family? What makes you ask that, sweetheart? He smiles different now. Before, at the wedding, he looked like the sad elephants at the other zoo. But now he smiles like the happy dolphins. Angela marveled at her daughter's ability to read emotions and express them in ways that cut straight to the heart of things. I think he's very happy to be part of our family, Angela said carefully. Good. Because I want him to stay forever and ever. When they returned to the sea lion area, they found Jonathan exactly where they had left him, but he wasn't alone. A little boy, maybe 6 years old, was standing next to his wheelchair, asking animated questions about the mechanics of how it worked. And you can go fast? The boy was asking. Pretty fast, Jonathan confirmed. Want to see? He demonstrated the quick turns and stops that had taken months of physical therapy to master. The boy watched with the kind of fascination usually reserved for superheroes. Cool. I wish I had one. Trust me, Jonathan said with a smile, walking is better. But thank you for thinking it's cool. The boy's mother appeared, looking mortified. Tommy, you can't just bother people with questions. He's not bothering me, Jonathan assured her. Curiosity is a good thing. Angela watched this interaction with growing admiration. Jonathan had turned what could have been an awkward situation into a teaching moment, helping a child understand that people with disabilities weren't objects of pity but just people who did things differently. As they left the zoo later that afternoon, Sophia fell asleep in her car seat, exhausted from the day's adventures. The drive back to Queens was quiet, but it was a comfortable silence filled with shared contentment. "Thank you," Jonathan said as Angela pulled up to his building. "For what?" "For today. For letting me be part of this. For giving me a chance to be her father." "You don't have to thank me for that. She's your daughter too." "I know, but you could have kept her from me. After what I did, you had every right to protect her from getting hurt by someone who had already proven he could walk away." Angela turned off the engine and looked at him seriously. The Jonathan who walked away 5 years ago couldn't handle being vulnerable. The man sitting next to me today just spent 2 hours patiently answering questions from children and making my daughter feel like the most important person in the world. People can change, Jonathan. You've changed. You've changed too. You're stronger now. More sure of yourself. I had to be. I had her to think about. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, both processing how far they had come from that painful goodbye 5 years ago. "Angela," Jonathan said finally, "I want to ask you something, but I don't want you to feel pressured to answer right away." "Okay." "My consulting business is doing well enough that I could use help with client management and project coordination. I know you have experience in business administration, and your event planning work shows you can handle complex logistics. Would you be interested in working together? As partners?" Angela felt her heart speed up. Working together would mean seeing him every day, would mean mixing their personal relationship with professional responsibilities. It would also mean financial security and the chance to use skills that had been dormant during her years of freelance event work. "I don't know," she said honestly. "That's a big step. Think about it. There's no pressure and there's no timeline. But I want you to know the offer is there if you want it." Angela nodded, already knowing her answer but needing time to process the implications. "I'll think about it." As she drove home with Sophia still sleeping peacefully in the back seat, Angela realized that somewhere in the past few weeks, she had stopped thinking of Jonathan as her ex-boyfriend who had returned. Now she thought of him simply as Sophia's father, as someone who was becoming an integral part of their daily life. The shift was subtle but significant, and it opened up possibilities she wasn't quite ready to name yet. Angela stared at the business proposal Jonathan had emailed her, reading it for the 3rd time in 2 days. It was thorough, professional, and generous to a fault. Equal partnership, profit sharing, health insurance, and a salary that was double what she made from her freelance event planning work. It was also terrifying. "What's got you so twisted up?" her sister Nicole asked over coffee at their usual Saturday morning spot. Sophia was at Jonathan's apartment for the morning, a weekly arrangement that had developed naturally over the past month. "Jonathan offered me a job. Actually, more than a job. A partnership in his consulting firm." Nicole nearly choked on her latte. "Wow, that's huge." "I know. Good huge or terrifying huge?" "Both." Angela showed Nicole the proposal on her phone. "Look at this salary, Nicole. Look at these benefits. I could finally stop worrying about money. I could put Sophia in that private preschool with the art program she loves. I could maybe even start saving for college. But it means working with him every day. It means our lives becoming even more intertwined than they already are. What if things don't work out between us personally? What if we disagree about business decisions? What if he decides family life is too complicated and pulls back?" Nicole studied the proposal more carefully. "This contract has some serious protections built in. Look, if the partnership dissolves for any reason, you get 6 months severance and help finding placement with another firm. And the way the profit sharing is structured, you build up equity over time. Angela, this isn't just a job offer. This is someone investing in your future." "I know. That's what scares me." "Why?" Angela struggled to put her fears into words. "Because accepting this means trusting him completely. Not just with my heart, which I'm already doing whether I admit it or not, but with my financial security and my career. It means betting our entire future on the idea that he's really changed." "Has he given you any reason to think he hasn't changed?" "No. Just the opposite. He's been incredible with Sophia, reliable, patient, kind. He shows up when he says he will. He asks before making decisions that affect her. He's everything I wished he would be 5 years ago. So what's the real problem?" Angela sighed, finally admitting what had been keeping her awake at night. "I'm falling in love with him again. Or maybe I never stopped loving him and I'm just finally admitting it. Either way, accepting this job offer feels like admitting that I want us to be a real family, not just co-parents who get along well. Nicole reached across the table and squeezed her sister's hand. Would that be so terrible? Being a real family? What if he doesn't want the same thing? What if he's just trying to be a good father but doesn't have any romantic feelings for me anymore? Has he given you any signs one way or the other? Angela thought about the way Jonathan looked at her sometimes when he thought she wasn't paying attention. The way his hand lingered when he helped her with her coat. The way he had started asking about her day, her dreams, her thoughts on things that had nothing to do with Sophia. Maybe. I think so. But I'm afraid to read too much into it. Angela, you're 31 years old. You've been raising a child alone for 5 years while building a career and taking care of everyone around you. You're allowed to want something for yourself. You're allowed to take a chance on happiness. Before Angela could respond, her phone buzzed with a text from Jonathan. Sophia wants to know if you're coming to our pancake contest. She's making extra batter just in case. Angela smiled despite her anxiety. They're having a pancake contest. Of course they are. Go be with your family and stop overthinking this decision to death. 20 minutes later, Angela was climbing the stairs to Jonathan's apartment, the smell of pancakes and the sound of laughter drawing her forward. She found them in the kitchen, both wearing matching aprons that said World's Best Chef, with flour dusting their hair and huge grins on their faces. Mommy? Sophia ran over, hugging Angela around the legs. We're making pancakes shaped like animals. Daddy made an elephant and I made a butterfly, but it looks more like a blob with wings. It's a beautiful blob butterfly, Jonathan said seriously. Very artistic. Angela looked around the kitchen, which was even messier than her own had been that first morning Jonathan came for breakfast. But both Jonathan and Sophia looked absolutely delighted with themselves. Can I be a judge in this contest? Angela asked. Yes, but you have to be fair. No picking favorites just because I'm your daughter, Sophia instructed. And no picking favorites just because I'm devastatingly handsome, Jonathan added with a straight face. Sophia giggled. Daddy, you're silly. Angela felt her heart do that fluttering thing it had been doing more and more often lately. Watching Jonathan and Sophia together, seeing how natural and joyful their relationship had become, made her want things she had convinced herself were impossible. They spent the next hour eating pancakes and laughing at Jonathan's increasingly elaborate animal shapes. He made a giraffe that was so tall it fell off the plate, a turtle that looked more like a pancake with a small pancake on top, and finally a rabbit that actually resembled a rabbit, much to Sophia's delight. Daddy wins, Sophia announced after careful consideration. But only because the rabbit looks like Rosie. I accept this victory with honor, Jonathan said solemnly, bowing from his wheelchair. After they cleaned up the kitchen together, Sophia settled in the living room with her coloring books, leaving Angela and Jonathan alone for a few minutes. I read your proposal, Angela said without preamble. And? It's generous. Almost too generous. It's fair. You'd be bringing skills and experience that would make the business significantly more profitable. Plus, you'd be taking a risk on a relatively new company. Is that the only reason? Business sense. Jonathan was quiet for a moment, and Angela could see him choosing his words carefully. I want to work with you because you're brilliant and capable and you make everything better just by being involved. I want to work with you because I trust your judgment and your instincts. And yes, I want to work with you because it would mean seeing you every day, and that's become something I look forward to more than I probably should. Angela felt her breath catch. Jonathan. I know we're taking things slow. I know you need to protect yourself and Sophia. But Angela, I need you to know that this isn't just about being good co-parents. At least not for me. Before she could respond, Sophia appeared in the doorway. Are you two talking about grown-up stuff? Because I have something important to tell you. What's that, sweetheart? Angela asked, grateful for the interruption and frustrated by it at the same time. I think we should all live in the same house. Like a real family. Then Daddy could read me stories every night and help me brush my teeth, and Mommy wouldn't have to drive back and forth so much. The innocent suggestion hung in the air between them like a challenge. Angela looked at Jonathan, seeing her own surprise and longing reflected in his eyes. That's a big decision, Angela said carefully. Something like that would take a lot of planning and thinking. But you'll think about it? Sophia pressed. Both of you. We'll think about it, Jonathan promised. Right now, though, I think someone needs to think about picking up these coloring books. As Sophia busied herself cleaning up, Angela felt the weight of all the decisions pressing down on her. The job offer, the growing feelings between her and Jonathan, Sophia's desire for them to be a traditional family. Everything was moving so fast, but at the same time, it all felt inevitable, as if they had been moving toward this moment since the day Sophia first called Jonathan Daddy. "I want to accept the job offer," she heard herself saying. "On one condition." "What's that?" "We keep business separate from personal. Clear boundaries, professional behavior during work hours, no matter what happens between us personally." Jonathan nodded. "Agreed. Anything else?" "If things don't work out, if we decide this partnership isn't working for any reason, we figure out how to co-parent successfully regardless. Sophia's well-being comes first always." "Always," he agreed. Angela felt a mix of terror and excitement as she extended her hand. "Partners?" Jonathan shook her hand, his smile bright enough to power the entire city. "Partners." From across the room, Sophia looked up from her coloring book. "Does this mean Daddy is going to work with us now?" "Yes," Angela said, realizing that somehow, without planning it, they had become an us. "Daddy is going to work with us now." 3 months into their business partnership, Angela had to admit that working with Jonathan was nothing like she had feared and everything she hadn't dared to hope for. Their small office in downtown Manhattan had a view of the harbor, 2 desks positioned so they could collaborate easily, and a corner area where Sophia could do homework or play quietly after school. "The Morrison account wants to extend their contract for another year," Angela announced, hanging up the phone with a satisfied smile. "That's 3 major renewals this month. We're going to need to hire additional staff soon," Jonathan said, looking up from his laptop. "Are you ready to become a boss? I've been managing you for 3 months. How much harder can real employees be?" "Hey," Jonathan protested, but he was grinning. "I'll have you know I'm an excellent employee. I show up on time, I don't steal office supplies, and I only occasionally eat your lunch from the refrigerator. You ate my lunch once and you bought me dinner to make up for it. See? Excellent employee." Angela laughed, marveling at how easy this had become. They worked together seamlessly, their different strengths complementing each other perfectly. Jonathan was brilliant at strategy and client relations, while Angela excelled at project management and keeping everything organized. More importantly, they had managed to maintain the professional boundaries they had agreed upon, even as their personal relationship continued to deepen. The office door opened and Sophia burst in, her backpack sliding off one shoulder and her hair slightly messed from the school bus ride. "Mommy? Daddy? Guess what happened at school today?" "What happened, princess?" Jonathan asked, saving his work and giving Sophia his full attention. "Mrs. Patterson said we're going to have a daddy-daughter dance at school next month, and I can bring my daddy." Sophia climbed onto Jonathan's lap, her excitement bubbling over. "Will you come? Please?" Angela saw something flicker across Jonathan's face, a moment of uncertainty that was gone almost before she could identify it. "Of course I'll come," he said. "I would be honored to be your date for the daddy-daughter dance." "Good. Because I already told everyone that my daddy is the best dancer in the world, even though he sits down when he does it." Jonathan's smile was soft and genuine. "I hope I can live up to that reputation." After Sophia settled in her corner with her homework, Angela and Jonathan continued working, but she could sense his distraction. Finally, she decided to address it directly. "You're worried about the dance," she said quietly. "A little. I've never been to a school function. I don't want to embarrass her." "Jonathan, you could never embarrass her. She adores you." "I know, but what if the other kids ask questions about my wheelchair? What if their parents stare? What if she starts to feel self-conscious about having a father who's different?" Angela set down her pen and looked at him seriously. "Do you want to know what Sophia told her teacher when she asked about bringing her father to the dance?" "What?" "She said, 'My daddy is super special because he has wheels and he can spin really fast and he gives the best hugs in the world.' Then she asked if the school had a ramp to the gymnasium because her daddy needs one to get inside." Jonathan's eyes filled with tears he didn't try to hide. "She really said that?" "Mrs. Patterson called me specifically to tell me how proud she was of Sophia's confidence and how naturally she advocates for accessibility. Our daughter doesn't see your wheelchair as a limitation, Jonathan. She sees it as just another part of who you are." "Our daughter," Jonathan repeated softly. "I love when you say that." Angela felt her heart skip a beat. Over the past few months, they had fallen into referring to Sophia as our daughter naturally, but hearing Jonathan acknowledge it directly made something warm bloom in her chest. "She is ours," Angela said. "In every way that matters." Their eyes met across the office space, and Angela felt the familiar tension that had been building between them for weeks. They had been so careful to maintain their professional boundaries, but the personal connection underlying everything they did was becoming harder and harder to ignore. "Angela," Jonathan said, his voice lower than usual, "can I ask you something?" "Of course. Are you happy with this arrangement, with how things have worked out?" "Yes," she said without hesitation. "Are you?" "I'm happier than I ever thought I'd be again. But. Jonathan glanced over at Sophia, who was absorbed in her math homework, then back at Angela. "But I keep wanting more. I keep thinking about what Sophia said about us all living together like a real family. I keep imagining what it would be like to wake up every morning knowing you and she were there." Angela's breath caught. "Jonathan, I know we agreed to take things slow. I know you need to protect yourself and her. But Angela, I'm in love with you. I've been in love with you this whole time, even during the years we were apart. And I hope, that maybe you feel something similar." Before Angela could respond, Sophia looked up from her homework with perfect timing. "Daddy, can you help me with this math problem? It's really hard." "Of course, sweetheart." As Jonathan moved his wheelchair over to help their daughter, Angela sat frozen in her chair, her heart pounding. He had said it. He had actually said he loved her. And the truth was she loved him too. Had never stopped loving him despite all her attempts to protect her heart. For the rest of the afternoon, they maintained their usual routine, but the conversation hung between them like a bridge neither was quite ready to cross. When 5 o'clock came and it was time to head home, Angela found herself reluctant to leave the cocoon of their office where everything felt safe and manageable. "Mommy, can Daddy come have dinner with us tonight?" Sophia asked as they gathered their things. "I want to show him the book I got from the library." "If he wants to," Angela said, not quite meeting Jonathan's eyes. "I'd love to," he said. "As long as you're sure it's okay." During dinner at their apartment, Sophia chattered about her day while Angela and Jonathan maintained careful conversation about work projects and weekend plans. But underneath the surface normalcy, Angela could feel the weight of Jonathan's confession and her own unspoken response. After dinner, Jonathan read to Sophia while Angela cleaned up the kitchen, listening to their voices from the living room. Jonathan had gotten very good at doing voices for different characters, and Sophia's delighted giggles filled the apartment with warmth. "Daddy," Angela heard Sophia say as the story ended, "I love you. I love you too, princess. More than all the stars in the sky. And Mommy loves you too. I can tell because she gets smiley when you're here." Angela's hands stilled on the dish she was washing. From the living room came a moment of surprised silence. "Did she tell you that?" Jonathan asked gently. "She doesn't have to tell me. I just know. Like how I knew you were my daddy before I even met you. Some things you just know in your heart." Angela leaned against the sink, overwhelmed by her daughter's wisdom and the truth of her words. Some things you did just know in your heart. And her heart had been telling her for months that this man, this family they were building together, was exactly what she had been searching for without even knowing it. When Sophia was finally tucked into bed, Angela and Jonathan found themselves alone on the couch, the weight of the evening's revelations settling between them. "She's pretty wise for a 4-year-old, Jonathan said softly. "She gets that from her father," Angela replied, then took a deep breath. "Jonathan, about what you said earlier? You don't have to say anything. I didn't mean to put pressure on you." "Yes, I do have to say something." Angela turned to face him fully. "I love you too. I've been trying to protect myself, but I can't help it. I love the man you've become. I love watching you with Sophia. I love working with you and laughing with you and building this life together." Jonathan's face lit up with hope and joy. "Angela? But I'm still scared," she continued. "I'm scared of getting hurt again. I'm scared of Sophia getting hurt. I'm scared of wanting something so much that I ignore red flags or warning signs." Jonathan reached for her hand, intertwining their fingers. "I'm scared too. I'm scared I'll mess this up somehow. I'm scared I'm not good enough for either of you. But Angela, I'm more scared of not trying. I'm more scared of wondering, what if, for the rest of my life." They sat in silence for a moment, both processing the magnitude of what they were acknowledging. "So what happens now?" Angela asked. "Now we stop pretending we're just co-parents and business partners," Jonathan said. "Now we admit that we're falling in love and see where that takes us." Angela felt a smile tug at her lips despite her nerves. "That sounds terrifying and wonderful. The best things usually are." As if summoned by the shift in energy between them, they heard Sophia's voice from her bedroom. "Mommy. Daddy. I can't sleep. They looked at each other and laughed, the moment of intensity broken by the reality of parenting. Some things never change, Angela said, standing up. Good thing we love her, Jonathan replied, following her toward Sophia's room. Good thing we love each other, Angela said softly, and felt her heart settle into a new rhythm, one that included hope and possibility and the scary, wonderful prospect of a real future together. Have you ever been given a second chance at something you thought you'd lost forever? Sometimes life has a way of bringing us exactly what we need when we're finally ready to receive it. What would you do if love knocked on your door again? Subscribe and share your thoughts. Your engagement helps us continue bringing you these heartwarming stories that remind us all that hope and healing are always possible. 6 months later, Angela stood in front of her bedroom mirror, smoothing down the soft blue dress she had chosen for what Jonathan had mysteriously described as a very important family meeting. Sophia was practically vibrating with excitement about their special dinner, though she claimed not to know any more details than Angela did. "Mommy, you look beautiful," Sophia announced from the doorway, wearing her favorite yellow dress with the twirly skirt. "Daddy is going to smile so big when he sees you." "You think so?" "I know so. He always gets happy eyes when he looks at you." Angela smiled at her daughter's observation. It was true that things had shifted between her and Jonathan over the past few months. They had stopped pretending they were just co-parents and business partners, allowing their relationship to evolve naturally into something deeper and more committed. They had started with small steps, holding hands during Sophia's bedtime stories, sharing longer conversations after business hours, acknowledging the growing intimacy between them. Jonathan had begun staying for dinner more often, and Angela had started looking forward to those evenings as the best part of her day. The daddy-daughter dance had been a turning point. Angela had watched from the sidelines as Jonathan spun Sophia around the gymnasium floor, both of them laughing with pure joy. Other fathers had approached him throughout the evening, and Angela had been amazed to see how naturally he connected with them, sharing parenting stories and advice as if he had been doing this for years. "Your husband is wonderful with her," one of the other mothers had said. "Oh, we're not married," Angela had corrected automatically. "Well, you should be," the woman had replied with a knowing smile. "I've never seen two people more meant for each other." The comment had stayed with Angela for weeks, not because it was surprising, but because it felt so absolutely true. "Are you ready, Mommy?" Sophia asked, bouncing on her toes. "Daddy said we have to be at the restaurant at exactly 7 o'clock for our surprise." "I'm ready," Angela said, though she wasn't entirely sure what she was ready for. The restaurant Jonathan had chosen was small and elegant, with soft lighting and a garden patio that overlooked the harbor. When they arrived, Angela was surprised to see their table was set for 4 people instead of 3. "Are we expecting someone else?" she asked as Jonathan helped her with her chair. "Actually, yes," he said, his eyes twinkling with mischief. "Someone very important who wanted to meet you both." Before Angela could ask who, a woman approached their table. She was in her 60s, with silver hair and kind eyes that looked remarkably familiar. "Angela, Sophia," Jonathan said, "I'd like you to meet my mother, Catherine Reed." Angela felt her breath catch. This was not what she had expected. Jonathan had mentioned his mother occasionally, but always in the context of their strained relationship following his accident. "It's lovely to meet you both," Catherine said warmly, leaning down to shake Sophia's hand first. "You must be the granddaughter I've been hearing so much about." "Granddaughter?" Sophia looked confused. "But I thought you said your mommy didn't want to meet us, Daddy?" Angela saw pain flash across both Jonathan's and Catherine's faces. "I made some mistakes," Catherine said gently, settling into her chair. "When your daddy got hurt, I was scared and I said some things I shouldn't have said. But he's helped me understand that being scared isn't a good reason to miss out on knowing wonderful people like you and your mommy." "What changed?" Angela asked Jonathan quietly. "I realized I didn't want to build a family with walls around it," he said. "I called her last month and told her about you and Sophia. I told her that she could either be part of our lives or not, but that the choice was entirely hers. And I chose to be part of it," Catherine said firmly. "I've missed too much already." The dinner conversation flowed more easily than Angela had dared to hope. Catherine was charming and clearly delighted by Sophia, who warmed up to her new grandmother with typical 4-year-old directness. "Do you want to see pictures of my rabbits?" Sophia asked, pulling out her phone case that was decorated with photos of her stuffed animals. "I would love to see pictures of your rabbits," Catherine replied seriously. As Sophia launched into detailed explanations of each stuffed animal's personality and backstory, Angela found herself in quiet conversation with Jonathan. "This is a big step," she said. "Introducing us to your family." You are my family, he said simply. I wanted her to understand that. I wanted you to understand that too. After dinner, as they walked along the harbor promenade, Sophia skipped ahead with Catherine, chattering about everything she could see. Angela and Jonathan fell into step behind them, his wheelchair moving easily along the smooth walkway. Angela, Jonathan said, his voice carrying a nervous undertone she hadn't heard in months. There's something else I wanted to talk to you about tonight. What's that? He stopped his wheelchair and reached into his jacket pocket, pulling out a small velvet box. Angela's heart stopped beating entirely. I know we said we were taking things slow, he began. I know we're still figuring out how to blend our lives together. But Angela, I don't want to spend another day pretending that this is temporary or casual or anything other than what it really is. He opened the box to reveal a stunning ring with a center diamond surrounded by smaller stones that caught the harbor lights like stars. I love you. I love Sophia. I love the life we're building together and I want to make it official. I want us to be a real family in every sense of the word. He looked up at her with eyes full of hope and vulnerability. Will you marry me? Angela stared at the ring, at this man who had already given her so much, at their daughter playing with her newfound grandmother, at the future stretching out before them filled with possibility. Yes, she whispered, then louder, yes, I'll marry you. Jonathan's face broke into the most beautiful smile she had ever seen as he slipped the ring onto her finger. From down the walkway came the sound of Sophia cheering. She said yes. She said yes. Their daughter was shouting, jumping up and down while Catherine clapped with delight. Did you know about this? Angela asked Sophia as the little girl ran over to admire the ring. Daddy asked me first, Sophia said proudly. I told him he could marry you, but only if he promised to read me stories every night and help me learn to ride a bike. And what did I say? Jonathan asked, lifting Sophia onto his lap. You said those were the easiest promises you'd ever made. Angela looked at her new fiancé, at their daughter, at Catherine who was wiping happy tears from her eyes, and felt her heart expand with a joy she hadn't known was possible. So when are we getting married? Sophia asked practically. Because I need time to pick out the perfect flower girl dress. Jonathan and Angela looked at each other and laughed, the sound carrying across the water like a promise of all the laughter and love that lay ahead of them. Soon, Angela said, admiring the ring on her finger that caught the moonlight like a blessing. Very soon. 1 year later, Angela stood at the back of the church, her hand resting on her father's arm as she watched their wedding guests settle into the pews. The small ceremony included family, close friends, and several of the clients who had become like extended family through their business. But her eyes were focused on the front of the church, where Jonathan waited at the altar. He was standing. The physical therapy had been grueling, the progress slow and sometimes discouraging. But Jonathan had been determined to walk down the aisle with his bride, even if it meant using forearm crutches and taking careful, deliberate steps. He had practiced for months, building up the strength and balance needed for this moment. You ready, sweetheart? Her father asked softly. Angela nodded, her eyes never leaving Jonathan's face. I've been ready for this my whole life. The music began, and Angela watched as Sophia walked down the aisle first, scattering rose petals with the kind of theatrical flair that only a 5-year-old could manage. She wore a pale pink dress that matched Angela's bouquet, and she had insisted on carrying both Rosie and Mr. Hopscotch as her assistant flower girls. When Sophia reached the altar, she gave Jonathan a thumbs up that made the entire congregation chuckle softly. Then she took her place next to Catherine, who had become the most devoted grandmother imaginable over the past year. As Angela began her walk down the aisle, she thought about everything that had brought them to this moment. The pain of their separation, the joy of their reunion, the careful building of trust and love that had led them here. Every step had been necessary, every challenge had made them stronger. Jonathan's eyes filled with tears as she approached, and Angela felt her own heart overflow with emotion. This man who had once been too afraid to stay was now promising to love her forever. This man who had lost everything was gaining a family that would never abandon him. Dearly beloved, the minister began, we are gathered here today to witness the union of Jonathan and Angela, and to celebrate the family they have already created together. The ceremony was simple and heartfelt. They had written their own vows, speaking directly to each other about second chances, about forgiveness, about the courage it takes to love completely. Angela, Jonathan said, his voice steady despite the tears in his eyes, 5 years ago I was too scared to fight for us. I thought I was protecting you by walking away, but I was really just protecting myself from the possibility of failure. Today I promise you that I will never stop fighting for us. I will never stop choosing love over fear. I will never stop believing that together, we can handle anything life brings our way. Angela's voice was strong and clear as she replied, Jonathan, you gave me the greatest gift of my life in Sophia, even when you didn't know you were doing it. Today you're giving me the gift of a complete family, of a love that's been tested and proven strong. I promise to love you through whatever challenges come our way. I promise to be your partner in everything. And I promise that our home will always be a place where love wins. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Jonathan took those careful steps toward Angela and kissed her with all the love and hope they had built together. The congregation erupted in cheers, but Angela barely heard them. All she could focus on was this moment, this man, this new beginning. I love you, Mrs. Reed, Jonathan whispered against her lips. I love you too, husband, she whispered back. As they turned to face their family and friends as a married couple, Sophia ran up between them, wrapping her arms around both their legs. Are we a real family now? She asked, looking up at them with bright, happy eyes. We've been a real family for a long time, sweetheart, Angela said, lifting their daughter up between them. Now we just have the papers to prove it. The reception was held in the church's garden, with string lights creating a magical atmosphere as the sun set behind them. Angela and Jonathan had their first dance to the song that had been playing on the radio the morning after their first breakfast together all those months ago. Jonathan used his wheelchair for the dance, spinning Angela around the floor with the same joy and grace he brought to everything else in their life. May I cut in? Sophia asked solemnly when the song ended. Of course, princess, Angela said, stepping back to watch as Jonathan lifted their daughter onto his lap for a father-daughter dance. As she watched them spin around the dance floor together, Angela was joined by Catherine, who had become not just a mother-in-law but a true friend over the past year. You know, Catherine said, I used to worry that Jonathan would never recover from the accident. Not just physically but emotionally. I thought he had lost too much to ever be truly happy again. And now? Angela asked. Now I see that he didn't lose everything. He lost the things that didn't matter so he could find the things that did. He lost a company but he gained a family. He lost the use of his legs but he found the courage to love completely. Sometimes I think that accident was the best thing that ever happened to him. Angela nodded, understanding completely. Sometimes the worst things in our lives clear the path for the best things. As the evening continued, Angela found herself surrounded by love and laughter. Their clients had become like family, their friends were celebrating as if this was their own happiness, and Sophia was holding court with the other children, telling elaborate stories about how her mommy and daddy fell in love. Near the end of the reception, Jonathan found Angela on the edge of the garden, taking a quiet moment to absorb everything that had happened. No regrets? He asked, rolling up beside her. Only one, Angela said, then smiled at his concerned expression. I regret that it took us so long to get here. Everything happened exactly when it was supposed to, Jonathan said, taking her hand. We needed those 5 years apart to become the people who could build this kind of love together. Angela looked out at their reception, where Sophia was teaching Catherine how to do the chicken dance while their friends cheered them on. What do you think happens next? She asked. Next, we go on our honeymoon to Disney World because our daughter informed me that's where all the best families go for celebrations. Angela laughed. And after that? After that, we wake up every morning and choose to love each other. We raise our brilliant daughter together. We build our business into something amazing. We probably argue about whose turn it is to do the dishes and whether Sophia can have ice cream for breakfast on weekends. That sounds perfect. It sounds real, Jonathan corrected. Better than perfect because it's real. As if summoned by their conversation, Sophia appeared at their side, slightly out of breath from dancing but glowing with happiness. Daddy, Mommy, I have something to tell you, she announced seriously. What's that, sweetheart? Angela asked. I decided that when I grow up, I want to find a love story just like yours. One with a happy ending and a daddy who reads stories and a mommy who makes the best pancakes in the world. Angela and Jonathan exchanged a look over their daughter's head, both thinking the same thing. That someday when Sophia was older, they would tell her the whole truth about love. That it wasn't always easy, that it required courage and forgiveness and the willingness to be vulnerable. That sometimes you had to lose everything to find what really mattered. But for now they were content to let her believe in fairy tales and happy endings. After all, they were living proof that sometimes fairy tales did come true. I think that's a wonderful plan, Jonathan said, lifting Sophia onto his lap one more time. And when you find your love story, your mommy and I will be right there cheering you on. Promise? Promise, they said together, and Angela knew that this promise, like all the others they had made that day, would be kept. As the stars appeared overhead and the last of their guests began to say their goodbyes, Angela Reed looked at her husband and daughter and felt her heart settle into its new rhythm. A rhythm of hope and love and the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you're exactly where you belong. The little girl who had once run across a ballroom to claim her father had brought them all home to each other. And this time there would be no more goodbyes, no more separations, no more wondering what if. This time, there would only be love, leading the way forward into whatever beautiful challenges and joys lay ahead.